For most of human history, commerce was a profoundly local affair. A farmer sold his produce at the village market, and a craftsman sold his wares to his neighbors. The world was vast, and honestly, the barriers of distance, language, and trust were immense. Trade routes like the Silk Road were the exceptions, not the rule. Extraordinary feats of endurance that connected distant empires but touched only a fraction of the global population. These ancient networks were the first threads of a global economy, weaving together cultures and commodities over treacherous landscapes. They demonstrated a fundamental human desire to acquire goods and ideas from beyond one's own horizon, a drive that would eventually reshape the world in ways ancient traders could never have imagined. The Great Age of Exploration, beginning in the 15th century, began to shrink the world. European powers established sea lanes that connected continents, creating the first truly global supply chains for goods like spices, textiles, and precious metals. This was globalization in its early, often brutal form, driven by mercantilist ambitions. Yet it laid the groundwork for a more interconnected economic system. The Industrial Revolution then supercharged this process, with steamships and telegraphs collapsing time and distance. Factories in Manchester could now process cotton from America or India and export finished textiles to markets across the globe, creating a complex web of dependencies that tied the economic fates of nations together more tightly than ever before. The latter half of the 20th century, however, witnessed a revolution that dwarfed all that came before it. This was the technological revolution. The invention of the shipping container standardized and radically lowered the cost of moving goods. Air freight made it possible to transport high-value products across oceans in a matter of hours, not weeks. But, the most transformative force has been the digital explosion. The internet, mobile communications, and sophisticated software have effectively erased geography as a primary barrier to many forms of business. A small artisan in Bali can now sell directly to a customer in Ohio through an e-commerce platform, managing the entire transaction from a smartphone. This digital frontier has democratized international business. It is no longer the exclusive domain of giant multinational corporations. Technology has provided the tools for small and medium-sized enterprises to participate in the global marketplace, sourcing materials, finding customers, and managing logistics with unprecedented ease. We now live in an era where capital, ideas, and goods flow across borders at the speed of light. Understanding this new landscape is not just an academic exercise, it is an essential skill for navigating the modern world. The journey from the local bazaar to the digital marketplace is the story of globalization itself, and it is a story that is still being written. Operating a business within a single country is a complex task. You must understand your local customers, abide by national laws, and navigate a single currency and culture. This is domestic business, a world with familiar rules and established boundaries. While challenging, its variables are relatively contained. The legal framework is unified, the economic policies are singular, and the language of commerce is generally consistent. A company in Texas selling to a customer in Florida operates under the same federal laws, uses the same dollar, and shares a broad cultural context. The playing field, while competitive, is at least level and clearly defined. International business, by contrast, is like graduating from a national league to a world championship. It involves transactions that cross national borders, and in doing so, it introduces a dizzying array of new complexities. Suddenly, you are not dealing with one government, but two or more. You must navigate different legal systems, cultural norms, and economic environments. Currencies fluctuate, political climates shift, and consumer tastes can vary dramatically from one market to another. The fundamental activities, buying and selling, are the same, but the context is profoundly different. It requires a broader perspective, greater adaptability, and a deeper understanding of the world's diversity. One of the key concepts in this global arena is the balance of trade. When a country exports more goods and services than it imports, it runs a trade surplus. This generally means foreign currency is flowing into the country, which can strengthen its economy. Conversely, when a country imports more than it exports, it has a trade deficit. This means more money is flowing out to pay for foreign goods. The main players in this global dance are numerous. They include exporters, who sell their products abroad, importers, who bring foreign goods into their home market, governments, which regulate trade through tariffs and agreements, and crucial intermediaries like freight forwarders who manage the complex logistics of moving goods across the world. The benefits of engaging in international business are immense. It opens up vast new markets, providing opportunities for growth that may not exist at home. It allows companies to diversify their revenue streams, making them less vulnerable to domestic economic downturns. And it can lead to greater efficiency by sourcing materials or labor from more cost-effective locations. However, the challenges are equally significant. Companies face currency risks, political instability, and the logistical nightmare of navigating customs and regulations in multiple countries. Success requires not just a great product, but a mastery of these unique international variables. The global economy does not function in a vacuum. It is governed by a set of rules and institutions designed to facilitate trade and ensure stability. After the devastation of World War II, world leaders came together to create organizations that would prevent a return to the protectionist policies that had worsened the Great Depression. Chief among these is the World Trade Organization, or WTO. The WTO operates as a global forum for negotiating trade agreements and, crucially, as a referee for resolving trade disputes between member countries. Its goal is to lower tariffs and other barriers, creating a more predictable and open international trading system for everyone. Alongside the WTO are other critical institutions. The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, works to ensure the stability of the international monetary system. It provides financial assistance to countries facing economic crises and offers policy advice to help governments manage their economies. The World Bank, its sister organization, focuses on long-term economic development and poverty reduction, funding projects in infrastructure, education, and health in developing nations. Regionally, trading blocs like the European Union and the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement create even deeper integration, often establishing single markets where goods, services, and people can move freely, further blurring the lines between domestic and international business for their members. For a company looking to go global, the first major decision is how to enter a foreign market. The simplest approach is exporting, which involves selling domestically produced goods to customers abroad. This can be done directly, by finding foreign buyers, or indirectly, by using an intermediary. Exporting offers a low-cost, low-risk way to test the waters of a new market. However, it gives a company limited control over marketing and sales, and shipping costs or tariffs can make products less competitive. It is often the first step on a company's international journey. Beyond exporting, there are more involved strategies. Licensing allows a foreign company to pay a fee, a royalty, to manufacture and sell your product in their market. This avoids the costs and risks of setting up operations abroad, but it means giving up a degree of control over quality and marketing. A joint venture involves partnering with a local company to create a new, jointly owned business. This strategy provides valuable local knowledge and shared risk, but it requires finding the right partner and can lead to conflicts over strategy and profits. The most committed approach is a direct investment, such as acquiring a local company or building a new facility from scratch, which offers the most control but also entails the greatest risk and capital outlay. To understand international trade, it's honestly best to walk through a simple transaction. So, let's imagine a small US company, American Widgets, wants to sell its products to a buyer in Germany, German distributors. The process kicks off with a purchase order. German distributors sends a formal request to American Widgets, detailing the product, quantity, price, and the desired delivery date. This is more than just an order, it's really the foundational document of the entire deal. After reviewing the order, American Widgets issues a pro forma invoice. Basically, that's a preliminary bill of sale that confirms all the details and specifies the payment terms. Once both parties agree, the real work begins. American Widgets has to prepare the goods for shipment, which involves more than just putting items in a box, honestly. The packaging must be robust enough to survive a long sea voyage and comply with German regulations. Next, American Widgets prepares a commercial invoice, the official bill used by customs authorities in both countries to assess duties and taxes. They also create a packing list, which details the contents, weight, and dimensions of each carton, allowing customs officials and the buyer to verify the shipment's contents without opening everything. These documents, you could say, are the passport for the goods. With the goods and paperwork ready, American Widgets hires a freight forwarder. This logistics expert is a crucial partner in international trade. The freight forwarder books space on a container ship, arranges for the goods to be transported from the factory to the U.S. port, and files the necessary export documentation with U.S. Customs. This includes the Electronic Export Information, or EEI filing, which is required for shipments above a certain value. The freight forwarder then generates the most important transport document, the bill of lading. This document acts as a receipt for the goods, a contract for their transportation, and, critically, the title to the goods themselves. Once the ship arrives in Hamburg, Germany, German distributors' own customs broker takes over. The broker uses the commercial invoice, packing list, and bill of lading to clear the shipment through German customs. They pay any applicable import duties and taxes on behalf of German distributors. Once customs releases the shipment, the goods are transported from the port to the buyer's warehouse. German distributors inspects the shipment to ensure it matches the purchase order, and the transaction is nearly complete. This step-by-step process, with its many documents and intermediaries, ensures that goods and money change hands in an orderly and legally compliant manner across borders. In a domestic sale, payment is often pretty straightforward. But when the buyer and seller are separated by thousands of miles, different legal systems, and a lack of established trust, how do you make sure the seller gets paid and the buyer actually gets the goods? This is really one of the central challenges of international trade. The risk is twofold. The exporter fears shipping goods and never receiving payment, while the importer fears paying for goods that never arrive or aren't as promised. To bridge this gap, the financial world has developed specialized payment methods designed to protect both parties. The most secure and widely used of these methods is the letter of credit, or LC. An LC is a guarantee from the importer's bank that the exporter will be paid once they've met a specific set of conditions. In our example, German distributors would ask its bank to issue an LC in favor of American widgets. The LC would specify exactly what documents American widgets must present, like the commercial invoice and the bill of lading, to prove the goods have been shipped as agreed. Once American widgets presents these compliant documents to its own bank, the German bank is obligated to pay, regardless of what happens to the buyer. This transforms the transaction from a risky deal between two companies into a secure, bank-guaranteed payment. While letters of credit offer maximum security, they can be complex and expensive. Other methods include documentary collections, where banks act as intermediaries to handle the exchange of documents for payment, but without providing a payment guarantee. For trusted relationships, an open account might be used where the exporter simply ships the goods and invoices the importer, expecting payment later, a method that carries significant risk for the seller. To standardize the responsibilities of the buyer and seller for the physical movement of goods, the International Chamber of Commerce created a set of rules called Incoterms. These three-letter terms define pretty precisely who is responsible for what and when risk transfers from seller to buyer. For example, FOB, free on board, means the seller's responsibility ends once the goods are loaded onto the ship at the designated port of export. From that point on, the buyer is responsible for the main sea freight, insurance, and all costs and risks. In contrast, CIF, cost, insurance, and freight, means the seller is responsible for paying the costs of freight and insurance to bring the goods to the buyer's destination port. However, under CIF, the risk of loss or damage to the goods still transfers from the seller to the buyer once the goods are loaded on the vessel. Understanding these terms is absolutely critical, as they determine who bears the cost if something goes wrong during transit. The world of international business is, honestly, in a state of constant evolution, driven by new technologies and shifting geopolitical landscapes. The future of global trade will be shaped by an increasing emphasis on trade compliance and risk management. Governments worldwide are really heightening their scrutiny of cross-border transactions to combat money laundering, enforce sanctions, and ensure product safety. For businesses, this means that simply having a good product is not enough anymore. They must invest in robust compliance programs to navigate a complex web of regulations. This involves carefully screening trading partners, correctly classifying goods for customs purposes, and maintaining meticulous records. Failure to comply can result in some pretty severe penalties, shipment delays, and reputational damage. At the same time, technology is poised to revolutionize the very mechanics of trade. Artificial intelligence, AI, is already being used to optimize supply chains, predict demand, and automate compliance checks. AI algorithms can analyze vast datasets to identify the most efficient shipping routes, forecast port congestion, and even flag potentially fraudulent transactions. For supply chain processes like procure to pay, the entire process from ordering goods to making payment, AI can automate invoice processing and identify opportunities for cost savings. Similarly, in the order-to-cash cycle, AI can streamline order management and predict payment behaviors, reducing risk for exporters. Perhaps the most disruptive technology on the horizon is blockchain. At its core, blockchain is a shared, immutable digital ledger. In the context of international trade, it can create a single, transparent record of a transaction that is visible to the exporter, importer, freight forwarder, customs, and banks all at the same time. This could eliminate the need for a mountain of paper documents, as the bill of lading, commercial invoice, and customs declarations could all exist as secure digital assets on the blockchain. This would dramatically reduce the risk of fraud, minimize delays, and slash administrative costs, making trade faster, cheaper, and more secure. As we look to the future, the principles of international business will remain, but the tools will be vastly different. The integration of these new technologies into core supply chain functions will be essential for staying competitive. The businesses that thrive will be those that embrace digital transformation, prioritize rigorous compliance, and view risk management not as a burden, but as a strategic advantage. The journey of global trade, which began on dusty trails and treacherous seas, is now moving onto digital highways. Mastering this new terrain is truly the central challenge and opportunity for the next generation of global business leaders.